Okay. Well, I'm so thrilled to be a featured reader here because this reading has just been rocking me every week I come to it. So, I'm going to read several of the poems that I've had in various anthologies. And I'm going to start off with one that I didn't realize was sort of my process of writing. And it's called Ars Poetica. You stumble back through the door, clothes wet, wrinkled, dirty, as if you got yourself involved in a fight above your weight in the wrong audience. Were you mouthing off about freedom in nonsensical metaphors, destroying tools without any thought to their purpose? Did you challenge meanings subjectively? Did you break rules simply to demonstrate you could, except nobody bothered to listen because you were shouting all caps with little progress, mere repetition? Just because you come home to regroup, patch your wounds, clean up the excess syllables, reframe sentences to a clarity needing no punctuation to hone the edges or setting. Stanzas are pressed into meaning, smoothing wrinkles that disguise images from showing themselves openly to a seamless flow that lures the hand to touch the heart beneath, where the real poem sets its trap. And this next poem was submitted to Poets Domain and was accepted. They do a theme contest, and this was for 2007, the anniversary of Halley's Comet, and it was also honoring Stanley Kunitz. It's called Boy in the White Flannel Nightgown, and it is dedicated to my brother. He was the son of immigrants who would never understand the cruelty of bedtime in the soft summer darkness, when stadium sun still illuminated diamonds in the dirt, the smell of sweat and tobacco, and the smack of leather on leather and wood. So on those nights, he built tents out of the sheets, dugouts out of pillows to cradle the small plastic transistor. As he listened to the passage of innings, he knew each player's stats and often whispered them before the play-by-play. He tracked the home team all season, especially that miraculous game that would clinch the pennant. Coming down to a tied game, bottom of the ninth, two out, runners at first and third, and a count of 2-1 on the heroic left fielder. Then the pitch, curving low inside, the smack of leather and string on wood, and the little radio crackled, going, going, gone, as my brother raced to the backyard in his nightshirt to see the meteor of that home run blaze into the heavens. This is called Control the Night. I like looking at things from different angles. I think everything is a diamond with many facets, and each way you turn it is a different story. Control the night. To avoid thinking too much, I cut light to pieces, like strips of paper, like broken doors, like shadows under my shoe. I reduce the views to smaller and smaller pieces that are more bearable, easier to fold, fit into boxes, then shut into drawers, hide under shadows, so light is reduced, locked away. Night asserts control. Dreams shift thoughts into probabilities calculated by the mathematics of starlight. The walls we build. Talking through stone, addressing memories redrawn by time, my shrill questions damped to inaudible vibrations, your excuses absorbed into subsonic tectonic tremors. Our answers distorted, dislodging minute silent particles of mortar and jagged fragments of meager explanations we wanted to hear. We've been talking to our own graven images of each other so long, we've forgotten who was really hiding on the other side of the wall. We dug separate graves to bury the each other remembered through tinted glass. So we don't recognize the person across the table, and we leave the burial early, each expecting the other to finish the digging. Instead, victims of our own inexpert construction, we leave the carcass of our love exposed, bitter food for scavengers. And this poem was in the volume 30 of Poets Domain, The Importance of the Insignificant. This was written for my hairdresser's grandmother, and she was telling it to me on the anniversary of her passing and sort of explaining what she thought. And I thought, this story has to be recorded. That she was there. Was it important that she was there 10,950 days after weeks, months, years, working as many hours in the day as she could find in a time when the gold band meant you should be at home, taking care of the hubby who barely recognized her through the alcoholic haze, taking care of kids who knew her only as an absence. Never mind, she kept them sheltered, fed. Only diner regulars saw her smiling, cheerful face every day after day, except on the Sabbath she could no longer believe in. She worked through the changes happening behind her smile without breaking stride. Even as she faded, shrank, dropped more and more memories of those 10,950 days. It is important now to generations descended from her to recall, retell an accomplishment that made no headlines then and won't now, that changed no world events and won't now, because working a hard job 10,950 days without missing one took character, determination, and courage that imperceptibly, slowly can change everything. And we can only hope we have inherited enough of that character to make, to do something that matters. I lived in Houston while I was in high school, and the afternoon thunderstorms were, oh, being from the north, I had always thought, oh, it's going to rain, it'll cool things off. Boy, was I wrong. And the same counts for Virginia as well in the summer. Gathered clouds. The storm passed elsewhere. No blinding brilliance revealing skeletal reality. No tearing winds ripping trees to shreds. No deluge to obscure or drown. We remain under smothering blue. Unable to breathe, suspended between despair and frustration, anything like decision, suspended like cumuli, too proud to reign. Maintaining useless silence. In unchallenged heat, unpleasant truths ferment into lethal sustenance, mutating into reactions, crippled attempts to continue as if everything is normal. We need the violence of thunder, searing, cleansing of lightning, to become either nestlings torn from undependable trees or wise creatures resting in sanctuary. We should be burned, shattered, smoldering deconstruction, and emptiness scrubbed clean. Perhaps an end or cleared space to rebuild. Perhaps we move to separate higher grounds, depending what the rainbow offers. And this is a poem that's written about one of my favorite places many years ago. It was a cabin up in the Shenandoah, the Blue Ridge Mountains in the Shenandoah National Park. Screen porch. I need to remember. Hands on railing, almost close enough to press against the screen. Slow air, too tired for breeze, oozing through trees. We stand inside screen porch, sip tea, afternoon warm, waiting for heat to fade with the light. We're dressed only enough for decency and uninvited company. I watch swallows darting, eating on the fly, where indigo rises through trees, covers light and color for the night. Smell of a faraway chill. You stand against me, bare shoulder pressed into the screen, and slide arms around me, pulling me into a night warm kiss that evolves into slow dance. I touch your shoulder, branded into a mosaic of tiny flesh pieces, small points of heat, living, beating, fragile under my hand. Reminder that this moment is just that, becoming a new night with our every breath. In a distance too far for thunder, heat lightning flashes, changes to come. Um, I think and this I wrote for the bicentennial Walt Whitman anthology, and I actually got to read it at the Walt Whitman birthplace. It is a glossa, so it has an epigram. It's called What We Call Ourselves in the Dark. Names have started to admit their inabilities, though without a mouth I can hear your name. For there is some kiss we want our whole lives, the infant knocking at the door of every word. Rumi. You know you are more than the shape of letters that is a definition of an aspiration or a blessing. Yet we use public names to neutralize our identities, and we use general terms like questions repeated. No satisfactory answers. We avoid asking again and again. We do not hear the language shape the possibilities. So you talk around who you are, what you want, as if the space between the sharp edges of letters was a blueprint of a structure without utilities. Names have started to admit their inabilities. But the same sound interrupted by a tiny noise so quiet, vibrating below the acceptable thresholds of hearing, becomes the name chosen in the darkness. Our garment, worn not to limit, but to protect, to be embellished, to become the alias your imagination calls you, an endearment, seeking qualities you cannot claim. We are afraid to go deeper than spontaneous words. Realize connections are more than continuous ink shaping, sounds between emptiness. From dark safety proclaim, even without a mouth, I can swear your name. The label summarizing what breathes in my chest does not contain or restrain you to any shape of emotion declared on any page in any book. Just as I am not the desire I want to believe I need, no need to identify the mystery in the same way, but find language to name the temptation that thrives in the whisper of words of longing we become, and change the label of what the world names us. How prepared are you to go beyond what survives? For there is some kiss we want our whole lives. Is it truth or temptation, spoken in a whisper, that we pretend not to hear with colors present? We undress in the dark to worship without voices, creating new myths for each other's imaginations. We fill the spaces between the shapes of letters, possibilities of difference erasing definitions, blurred into solutions, resolutions, derived in the parallel of universes of instantaneously invented language. We become created names in the defiant silence heard, the infinite knocking at the door of every word. And this one I just have to do because it's fun. It is also the reason why when I was working, nobody should ever have sent Lesley to one of those, high-level marketing meetings as a reward for something. This is what I got out of one of those meetings, literally, word for word. Sales pitch. You are suited for the boardroom, but you are pitching bedroom, moving seamlessly from metrics to evaluation criteria. You woo me with your penthouse elevator speech. A strategy of acquisition designed to add me to your portfolio successes. Your trade show presentation demonstrates your unique features and functions, and you seek to convince me that this corporate merger promises synergy and profits. Then you leverage your position and insist on divestiture, eliminating the competition to secure your market share. You create a firewall around our connection. You are almost ethical, living in two sets of books, gaming in every arena. But this shareholder vote goes against your tendered offer because negotiations on a balance sheet of emotion can't be conducted in terms of commerce. You've made a cold call because I'm not a player and love isn't a business plan. And I really enjoy exploring absurdity. Again, it's like examining that diamond and finding another facet and seeing what you see on the other side. Observation. Teacup sits precisely at the center of a wobbly table on a red clay tile patio, painted with shapes of seagulls, foreign to this landlocked oasis. Ladder-back chairs and tropical pastels appear. Ballet slippers twirl themselves in semicircle of audience to positions around the table. Radio voice vibrates news on the ear like muted dentist drills, words indistinguishable as language. In the distance, someone looking back to what's left behind flails in a rowboat with unchanging perspective. Sanctuary maintains its solitude. The table topples. Ballet slippers move stage right. Chairs order themselves by color back to front. The teacup lands upright. Amber liquid ripples inside. I sit on a stone throne, resting my back against the wall. Night falls. How am I doing on time, David?
Great. You only did 16 minutes so far.
Okay. All right. This is called Cassini. Cassini was the spacecraft they sent to, I believe it was Saturn, or was it Jupiter? It was Saturn. Um, and it was one of those that was, one of those probes. There was no way back for it. And so they programmed its end. Cassini. They didn't give you a map to guide you home, depending on your curiosity to keep you going, even as you became your own starvation. What you found turned sharpest eyes to scratch lenses, building blocks assembled into unimagined architectures, twisting standard definitions, trajectories beyond calculation. Your journey always finite, now you falter in decaying orbit. They advise spectacular suicide, more merciful than stumbling starvation. Obediently and precisely on schedule, you encounter forces toxic, resistance, disintegration. In those final moments of speech, did you discover new ways to measure beyond blueprints of known, to transfigure into other, suspended within something greater? This is one of the poems from Journey Through Red Heaven. Unfortunately, that book's out of print, but I have a few copies if anybody's interested. Between Foundation and Revelation, color wheel, circle thrown in the air, breaks into questions, answers. Begin at red roots, grounded, secure with the journey ahead. Tap into orange, inspiration, curiosity, passion to accept consequences. Ego, gold, yellow, focus to push through temptation, stagnation. Introspection with green heart gives loving tools to pick up pieces, give voice to blue-green hope, taking lessons from disappointment. Sense blue intuition, find wisdom into journey with no direction. Sees purple opportunity of spirit to release, accept freedom of enlightenment, creating magenta fog, dissolving resistance to necessary endings. Answers collect on the ground in color wheel circle of endless questions. And okay. And I am gonna end with this poem that just came out in Local Gems anthology, The Eagle and the Maple. Um, it's by American and Canadian poets, and I'm a twofer. I was born in Canada, but now I've lived in America most of my life. The same river. How could it be? Neither of us are the people throwing petals into contorting brown waves, charging past the patient tree, no longer here. I wasn't there when another flood of river tore the shade from its banks. The flood that tore me from my anchor left no mark here, except I see differently. You can't tell how the uprooting occurred. The grafting of your present parts happened in foreign times and places, beyond your capability to describe. Is our recognition imaginary? pretending we see lines we knew underneath the faces we take from our separate mirrors every morning. That recognition necessary confirmation that we are still here, in our scars just visible. Even as we look into the sun on the wrong side of a sky displaying strange scenery, seeing a rocky topography that never was part of a landscape we shared. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much for writing and reading before us, Lesley. I love your description of things being a diamond and each facet of them was a different story. That's really fascinating and true. You know, everything does have multiple facets and uh, amazing. And this is so sad and yet so brilliantly said. We leave the carcass of our love exposed, bitter fruit, and you go on. I may have misquoted it a little, but so intensely real and visceral. Um, to make, to do something that matters. Absolutely. What a poem that is, and I love the theme of I forget the word you use for these small things, uh, unimportant things or something like that.
Insignificant
Uh,
things, yeah.
insignificant things. Yeah, that's quite something. Uh, and when you start to say names have started to admit their vulnerabilities. Oh my, the life of words. We have words as real being, uh, infinite knocking at the door of every word, the way you describe us, meeting language. And this, we undress in the dark to worship without voices. Oh my God, that just sends the senses reeling, and yet is so real and feelable. And I love that poem about one of the earlier ones you read about tearing the light to shreds, so you could have more bearable pieces. That was absolutely brilliant. Uh, and the slow air, too tired for breeze. How amazing. All right, well, let's all unmute our mics and uh, clap, comment as you like for Lesley Tyson.
Fabulous. Fabulous.
Wonderful.
Wonderful read,
Yeah,
Lesley. Wonderful.
great
Thank you.
job, Lesley.
Thank you.
You very much free up the language, Lesley. It's great to follow you.
And I'm glad you did sales pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a true story, by the way. And as we're walking out of this meeting, one of the directors that I was supporting walked up and he goes, I'm sorry, I kind of nodded off during that. Can I borrow your notes? And I'm like, no, because I literally hadn't written a thing to do with the subject of, how we were pursuing our business and, what value we could offer and all like, I
How
hadn't done
funny.
any of that. It was just, I don't know why. It just struck me as hilariously funny, which is why I'm a poet, not the president of a company.
Hey, Lesley, don't forget to put your information so we can follow you.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
that's great. Awesome.
And put a link in for PA.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah,
Lesley,
that'd be
I,
great.
I just took a challenge one time. I was forced to attend an insurance meeting. I was the marketing director of a web company, and we were about to start selling this insurance product. And these guys were going on and on and on and using the term breakage, describing insurance. And I had no clue. And in a meeting like that, you're supposed to all pretend that you know what the hell's going on. But I had to stop them because I had to sell this crap. So I said, excuse me, please tell me, what do you mean by breakage? You can break a vase, you can break a lamp. Well, how do you break insurance? And what they explained to me, and they're all chuckling, these insurance people, well, that's what we call actually having to pay. That's that's what they called breakage. And I thought, to have a business model that depends on you selling a product that you never provide. I wrote a poem about it and I'm going to deliver it today just for you.
Okay. Thank you.
That's great.
That's great. Okay, let me see. Well, I might have.
So, everyone, you can refresh your beverage or stretch as you like. And anyone else want to comments about Leslie's magnificent set?
It was magnificent, Lesley. Great to
Yeah, it
hear you.
definitely
Thank
was.
you so much.
Thank you, Rorschach. Thanks,
Did,
Sam.
did you coin penthouse elevator speech?
I don't think I did, but
I've heard elevator pitch or elevator speech, but never penthouse elevator speech. That sounded uh, very interesting, and I'm going to credit you with it anyway.
okay. It was, I will tell you, just somehow the way, because of all the marketing stuff, because I was a basic worker. I did contracts. So, I'm not in, I didn't, thank God, did not have to market anything we did. So I'm listening to all this and I'm sitting there going, you're trying to seduce somebody here. And I just went with it.
Well put.
Wow. I love how you described the voyage of the space vessel Cassini and how it was a suicide mission. I was reading about this yesterday and about that tiny moon of Saturn that it was studying, Enceladus, as it is called, and how it's covered with ice, and yet geysers of steam and water keep coming out of it, and underneath there's just pure ocean, and it contains all the elements necessary for life. It has carbon, for example. This is not an ordinary planet. This is, a hint of other places in the universe having the ingredients for life to exist.
Mhm.
And I was fascinated by that.
And some of the most, what fascinated me, and I'm obviously trying to attribute it with some sort of, anthropomorphizing it, which I know you're not supposed to do, but
Mhm.
somehow I kept thinking, what is this loyal servant that it knows it's dying, and even I forget they say how many miles it got deep into Saturn's atmosphere. It was still, with its camera pointed back, it was still broadcasting back to Earth.
Wow,
And I mean, I
amazing.
just think about that going, you know, it sound I felt it was heroic that it was doing that. And it just, and plus some of the stuff we've learned. Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for using that in your poetry so publicly. It's really fascinating. It's really quite something. Okay. Well, we have a round two for you, which begins with Rusty Rose, and then Poole and Sam Hardy. So, thanks again to you, Lesley. I'll stop your recording now. I just wanted you to have the comments